Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, happy Friday, everybody, on Sports Daily. It's Jacob Albracht, it's Tommy Castor, Jad Chambers producing for you. Big show set up for you today. Wyatt Thompson will join us in our next segment for some final looks ahead to the Sunflower Showdown tomorrow. Who's ready for that game? I am. I think everybody is. We got a lot to talk to about that, a lot of college hoops to talk about. Wichita State began its holiday tournament with a win. We've got K-State with a really good one tonight, as well as the Shockers getting a good one tonight as well. The K-State women, the game of the night last night, the win of the night across all college basketball. We'll get into that a little bit. We had a Thursday night football game with plenty to talk about. It is a jam-packed Friday. We'll, of course, make our picks a little later in the show with Paul Savage, and we'll get to all kinds of good stuff today. The IHOP hotline is open for you at 869-1240. IHOP, where kids through November 26th, kids eat free every day from 4 to 10 o'clock at night with a purchase of an adult entree. We'll give away some HTO as well to get you ready for the weekend. Happy Friday, TGIF. Tommy, how are you?
I'm good, ready for the Friday, ready to jump right into it. Was an interesting Thursday night football game last night, high-profile matchup. Of course, the Joe Burrow injury kind of overshadows everything. But man, a lot to talk about today, a lot to get to and look forward to.
Yeah, we'll get to Thursday night football here real quick, and we got to kind of go rapid fire through a lot of this, and then we'll get to Wyatt Thompson. The other big headline yesterday, Jalen Daniels confirming that he is going to be back next year, and he's going to be back in Lawrence next year. I know that makes KU fans feel much better. Probably eases, I don't want to say it eases the pressure this year, but, it definitely, I think, is a sense of unease, a sense of ease when it was a little bit of unease, for months now as we waited on Jalen Daniels. So that's in there. We'll get to that in a little bit. College hoops, Tommy, we got to mention these K-State women. If you didn't see it last night, if you caught up with it this morning, K-State beat number 2 Iowa, Caitlin Clark. Big win for them, obviously. It came on the road, by the way. But here's what's awesome if you didn't know this about the K-State women this year. 2 key contributors are locals for us. Diana Walker, you might remember the Heights star, one of the best basketball players I've ever seen, had gone to Louisville. She was like a top 5 recruit nationally, then got hurt, then went to Louisville. I don't know what happened there, but she's now at K-State, and she's one of their key players. So she had 12 points last night. And then Taryn Sides, a freshman out of Phillipsburg, is also for K-State, and she's seeing minutes even as a freshman there. She had 8 points last night. So there's a big local flair to the K-State women's team this year. So just FYI, and they got a massive win over Iowa that has the whole country talking, and it's really, really cool that they got that done. And you love seeing it. It's extra special when you've got locals in there mixing it up with some of the best.
Well, yeah, and it was in Iowa City, so on the road for the K-State women. That's a huge, massive victory for the Wildcats. And Caitlin Clark struggled offensively. I thought the Wildcats did a really good job of limiting her and making her uncomfortable in the game. She was 9 of 32 from the field, so struggling offensively. She still had over 20 points, so Caitlin Clark is going to get hers, but she didn't shoot it at a very efficient clip. And Aoka Lee for Kansas State had a great shooting night, 9 of 14. So you go on the road to Iowa, taking on one of the premier programs in America and by far the best player in the country in Caitlin Clark. You walk away with the win. You're right. The entire country talking about it today. That's a big time win for the Wildcats.
Big time win. Let's talk about the Shocker men real quick, Tommy, before we, get to some K-State football and other things with Wyatt Thompson. So we also have the Shockers in action yesterday. We told you we really liked them at 9.5. They won by 9, or at least I told you that. And it was a bad beat too. They had it, and then they fouled on a 3-point shot late. We're sitting there just sweating it. Like, are they going to be able to get it? It kind of depends on the fouls, and they fouled the 3-point shooter, and I was like, we're toast. But they win by 9. It's interesting with them because we're just still trying to figure how good they can be. Coastal was much better than, and we didn't know anything about them. They'd only played one game against a Division III, but they were fine athletically. Xavier Bell, the Wichita kid, with a massive game, 20 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. He did have 5 turnovers, but as a team, the Shockers only had 7 turnovers. So that's really good to see. They forced 13. They actually got out rebounded, which really surprised me against Coastal Carolina, but it happened. And, so they haven't been quite as dominant on the boards as we thought maybe this team would be. But all in all, it was fine. They won by 9, and now they get the big one. Liberty's all the way up to 55 in the Ken Pom, Tommy, and Wichita State moved up a little bit to 100. But this will, at least according to the metrics, be their biggest test of the year here tonight in the second round of the Myrtle Beach.
Well, look, I think from the first round in the game yesterday, it's pretty obvious that an assertive Xavier Bell is a great Xavier Bell for the Shockers. And watching him take that next step from a year ago to now, we've seen it sort of coming for the last couple of games to start the season for Wichita State. He's stepped into that leader role, I think, better than most people thought he would. Not that anybody thought that he would have trouble doing that, but from what we saw from him a year ago,
it's certainly a step up in his game.
Yeah, there's a big time step up in what he's doing in the production that he has for this Shockers basketball team. We also know, and we've seen it throughout the early games, the way that Paul Mills is going to utilize Isaac Abide and Dalen Original. He has basically done it in every game so far, coming off the bench, providing that energy. And when he brought in Abide and Original, keep in mind, the Shockers got out to a big lead early, and then Coastal Carolina clawed back. They took the lead at one point. You needed to have a little bit of a shift in momentum, and that's exactly when Isaac Abide and Dalen Original came into the game. And so that's the way that he's going to be utilizing those guys. It's been effective so far. I don't see any reason why that should change.
No, and you just got to look at the minutes. Those guys played 26 and 22 minutes apiece. Original was really, really good, 15 and 6. 2 blocks, though. Like, Original was the energy guy last night or yesterday. So we've seen Abide kind of be that guy in the first handful of games. It was Original last night. And I don't know if you miss, the rotation could change. It doesn't matter. Again, like we do this. Like, just look at how much they played at the end of the game. And that's what really doesn't really matter who starts it. I'm with you, and apparently Paul Mills. I like the energy those guys come in with. They can sort of explode into it and do whatever it is that they need to do. But that's the 7 guys, it appears like right now. We'll see how that moves forward. But their biggest test of the year coming later today. Kansas State basketball's biggest test of the year is coming later today too. Maybe. Providence looks pretty good. Providence is a top 50 Ken Pom team right now. Maybe USC's better than them. USC had a loss the other day. But either way, K-State's got a big opportunity tonight, too. We'll talk about that game and, of course, the Sunflower Showdown when we continue the voice of the Wildcats. Wyatt Thompson joins us next on Sports Daily.
Your new radio home for K-State Athletics, 97.5 and 1240 KFH. It's that time, Sports Daily, getting all the inside information on Kansas State. Let's go now to the voice of the Wildcats, Wyatt Thompson.
All right, and welcome back into Sports Daily. A lot to get through with Wyatt Thompson today. Wyatt, I guess, first things first, how about those K-State women last night? A couple of locals here for us.
Yeah, I thought you might go there this morning. That was a heck of a win, wasn't it? I just got through visiting a little while ago with Randy Peterson, who is our women's basketball media relations director, and he had the color with Matt Walters on the play-by-play call last night. They landed about 1 o'clock, and I think they touched ground, but I don't know if they're still totally on the ground yet.
Yeah.
That was a heck of a win.
We love it.
They did a great job.
Well, we've got Ziana.
Wow.
Yeah, we've been watching Ziana for years and years here at Heights, and then on to Louisville. We were so excited when she went back there, and now we get to see her up close and personal. But you get a win like that. How real are they as a Big 12 contender, do we think?
Well, I think they're pretty solid that way. You win in major college basketball with depth. I think they have that. You win with a good big man, or in this case, Aoka Lee, and she's one of the best, if not best in the country, and I think you win with really good guard play, and I think they have that. And you mentioned her. I tell you what, I thought she did a nice job last night. I really like her game. I hadn't seen her a whole lot yet, frankly, with football and men's basketball going, but she's a nice player and a nice addition. And again, I think depth will be the key for them. I think they can certainly be in this race, no doubt about it.
Wyatt, let's jump into talking Sunflower Showdown tomorrow. I mean, it's the most intense week of the year, it seems like, for both fan bases leading into the KU State game tomorrow night. As far as the historical nature of this rivalry goes, and the fact that in the last decade and a half, Kansas State has dominated this matchup, what are you expecting as far as expectations are concerned that might be on the shoulders of Kansas State to continue on with this streak? And then just expectations in general with the way that their season has gone, the fact that, of course, all the latest controversy with the Big 12 tiebreaker rules. What's the mindset for the Wildcats going into this game?
I'll be honest with you. I think they're confident, relaxed, probably a little bit nervous. And I think all of those things are normal. Hey, they know that KU is a much better football team than the ones that they have faced over the last 14 games. There's no doubt about that. And I think that they have a great deal of respect for what they've done in the last 3 years under Coach Leipold. But I do think K-State is a confident team in going over there and what they've done in the past. It probably doesn't mean a whole lot necessarily when you get to game time. And yet, this team still, I think, is, when they lost to Texas, everybody thought, well, they can't get back to Arlington. And maybe that's still so. But I think they're still locked in on, they've got a good club. They can finish this thing with a 10-win season if they do it right, including a bowl game victory. And, man, how nice would that be? That doesn't happen everywhere, man. That'd be a pretty good season. Be a great season.
Well, it would be, and it looks like to me that it is. It looks to favor. I think it looks to favor K-State a little bit. Am I off base when this seems counterintuitive, but I think K-State would like to track meet this a little bit. Don't you think it favors the Wildcats to get the pace going in this and try to bring the scoring up a little bit?
Well, maybe so. I don't know that the game would play out necessarily that way, but I really feel like offensively, K-State is probably as good right now as they've been, and maybe more consistent than they've been all season long over the last 4 or 5 games, and that does include the loss at Texas, where they got to overtime and lost a heartbreaking game. Their offensive line is really, I think, playing now better than they have all year long. You've got receivers that are giving them more now. Will has been in a pretty good groove. You've got, not only Ben Sennett, but Will Swanson and Garrett Oakley have come along. And I'm a big fan of DJ Giddens and Trayshawn Ward together. DJ's had a really nice year. I mean, have you noticed that he's averaging 6 yards a carry and has 26 catches? I mean, they've been really good offensively. Second in the league in scoring, 12th nationally. Good on third down, terrific in the red zone, lots of things to like. And they can. Here's the thing I like: they can play at a different pace, and they're so multiple in what they do. People talk about KU being that, and they are definitely. They're hard, but I love K-State's offense right now. Let's see if they can go get it done.
Wyatt, from a defensive point of view for the Wildcats, it seems like it's maybe going to be a game time decision about whether or not we see Jason Bean or Cole Ballard at quarterback for the Jayhawks. At least there hasn't been, from what I can tell, any kind of announcement from Kansas about who will be starting under center tomorrow night. So if you are the defense for the Wildcats, does your game plan change depending on who is starting at quarterback for Kansas, or do you have a plan regardless of who the quarterback is? And if so, what does that look like?
Well, I don't think there's a lot of change in what K-State's going to do, regardless of which player is in the game. In visiting with Coach Klanderman this week a couple of different times, I think like the rest of us, he has been impressed with KU's offense. He knows that Bean has been around a long time and knows what he's doing. And yet, I think you have to be to a certain degree impressed at how Cole Ballard handled last week, even in a hard loss. He was good in the moment. He wasn't like looking in any way like he didn't belong. I think he is a confident kid, a smart football guy. So, and Coach Klanderman told me that their skill sets are a little bit different, but not enough to start changing things. The kid can run, Bean can run a little bit. They both can throw it. So I just think this is, don't want to oversimplify, but I think you got two pretty darn good football teams here that like to run. Can they do some of the other things? And who's better in turnovers and who's better defensively and all those kind of things. And I love this because, we've seen a lot of games over the years with KU and K-State, and it has been one-sided. But I think we all expect a much, much better football game this time.
It's interesting for this rivalry, Wyatt, as we know it's one that will continue in the Big 12, and it's, going to be a lot of fun. Yesterday, I'm not sure how much you saw of this, but, Jalen Daniels, who it's been really disappointing not to see him play for KU, the Big 12 preseason player of the year, went out of his way to let everybody know he's coming back, and he's coming back to Lawrence. And, that's good for the league to know something like that, a player of that caliber, that high profile. But it's also like if you're K-State, oh, good, we get to deal with him next year. But it's what did you make of that announcement? And as you sit back and observe things now, as KU's actually getting back to being a really good team, how do you take in news like that with a star player?
Well, you know what? I guess what I would honestly say is that I really am not that surprised that he's hanging around. After visiting with him at Big 12 Media Days in Dallas, I just thought that the kid was very confident, really loved what was going on over there and the improvement that they've made, loved the offense. And just based on that, I never really was one that thought that he was going to jump in the portal and go somewhere else. And again, it's easy to say that after yesterday's announcement, and I did see it. But I do think he's committed to them and their program and what he's doing there, frankly.
Wyatt, I referenced it a couple of minutes ago about the Big 12 tiebreaker rules controversy that happened earlier this week. And I don't know how much, you can share an opinion on that. But as far as the way that this all sort of came about with, Kansas State having, potentially a fairly decent or solid path to playing in the Big 12 title game, to all of a sudden this quote unquote clarification from the Big 12 where now maybe that's not the case. What do you think does that do anything to the Wildcats internally? I mean, I'm sure that Gene Taylor is, pretty upset about all of this, but from your perspective, does this change anything for them?
I don't think it changes anything right now. I might have a totally different opinion after tomorrow night's game, right? I mean, does that make sense? I mean,
right.
I believe it makes all the sense in the world because, I'm one of those kind of guys. I'm a pretty positive person by nature. But in this particular case, I've heard so many different things said about the tie-breaking situation. And I mean, I'm just going to cut to it here and be honest and say, they can say that they didn't really change anything, but they did. I mean, they just did.
Right.
Did they make it better? Well, probably so. But sometimes when those kind of things happen, somebody's going to see it like K-State fans are seeing it right now that, hey, that could hurt us, right? I mean, that's a fair thinking line of thinking, I believe. Now, again, I think it goes back to the wording of it was a little bit too vague. And I don't know how you guys have probably followed this a lot closer than I have, with what I've got going. But, it was my understanding that the writing, as an example, with the Pac-12 was almost virtually word for word the same as the Big 12. And I think when, this thing went to as many teams as we have now, the head-to-head thing should have been a little bit more clear in the writing of it, don't you? I mean, that's the way I look at it. Right or wrong.
Me too. Look, I think that they're like long term, the right thing in this situation is what was, and I agree with you. Of course, they changed it because they literally changed the writing. But the change that they went to, big picture, if Oklahoma State and Oklahoma and Kansas State are tied and Oklahoma State beat each of them head to head, Oklahoma State needs to be the team that moves on. However, that's not the way it was written.
Yeah.
But the problem is you can't change the rules in the middle of the season. Like you have to see this and say, oh man, we got caught a little bit with our pants pulled down on that deal. We got to get that changed in the offseason because that's not the right way to do this. Not to say, not to clearly have been caught off guard by it, to have missed it to play out. I mean, that's the problem. And as far as we sat back and said, look, guys, because we read it before this all came out, we read it. We're like, I don't understand it. We were sitting here on the air trying to read tiebreakers, and we're like, I don't understand what that means. Let's let other people look at it. And then as people deciphered it and it became clear that it was almost like a loophole that was going to get K-State in, it was like, okay, well, that's a bit of good fortune. It's not the right thing, but you can't change it in the middle of the season.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think you said so many quality things there. And one would certainly be that, I think even K-Staters and Oklahoma fans, well, I better not say that. I don't know that for certainty. But I do think that with OSU beating both, and head-to-head matters, that's the right thing. This is more about changing midstream and kind of the way the league tried to pass it off as, well, we really didn't change anything. It was a clarification. No, that's not right.
We can see that you changed it. We actually can see that what it was before and what it was after are two different things. That's I don't know what the literal definition of a change is, but it's pretty close to that. I mean, that's what they did.
Right. Yeah. And it's a really difficult situation because, and I don't know if you guys would see it this way, but I think maybe if the league office had been, a little more upfront and saying, hey, we needed to add this or and maybe it wouldn't make it any better. I don't know, but it's been a little bit of probably more than a little bit, but just the look wasn't good from my perspective.
Let's go back. Yeah, let's go back to the game tomorrow itself, Wyatt, real quick, and more from, I guess, a personal perspective, or even I guess an emotional perspective. You've been around for a long time covering Kansas State. What does the Sunflower Showdown mean to you? And knowing that, it's like we've talked about, probably the most intense rivalry currently that, these two teams play against each other in football. What does it mean to you? And whenever you are calling a Sunflower Showdown, is the call heightened? Is it more intense for you because of the rivalry, or how does that work?
That's a great question, actually. And I think the short answer is you do get really fired up for this one. I've said this a lot of times over the years that I think our players very shortly after they get here, if they're, not a Kansas native, they figured out pretty fast how important this football game is to K-State fans everywhere. I've been out on the Catbacker Tour many, many times, and excuse me, that's one of the first things they ask those young people that we take out when they meet them. Now, you're going to beat Kansas, aren't you? Are you going to beat Kansas? And so that sticks with them. And I'm a little bit prejudiced, or a lot prejudiced, I guess. But hey, we've got 51 Kansas guys on our football team right now, and I think it's 6 straight years we've had 50 or more. That's a lot, and it is important to them. And do I really am excited for it, more so than other games. I don't mind admitting that. And yet you have to kind of, I don't know that I'm that different than the team in that you have to be able to handle that and do your job, right? I mean, they're there to win a job and win what they're supposed to be there for, right? Does that make sense?
Sure.
You got
to handle the business, or the excitement's not worth anything.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Wildcats, joining us. Hoops also in action right now. Another really nice test tonight, Wyatt. Providence, just looking at the KenPom, and it's so early in the season, but KenPom does have them, right there with K-State. I think they're within 5 or 6 spots in the, the low to mid 40s there. So this should be a really good test for Jerome Tang's team. Their best performance of the year was clearly South Dakota State. What have you seen? And I know, I assume you're not, jumping around to the Bahamas. I know you're not with them right now, but when you came out of that South Dakota State game, did you feel like that was the best that they've played, and that momentum is beginning to go onto their side a little bit?
Yeah, we're talking a pretty small sample size, but I think that the answer is certainly yes. I think they played closer for longer segments of the way they want to play, both offensively and defensively. And this has been a process, and I think it will continue to be, because their offense is different than it was a year ago. So that kind of changes even for the veteran guys who were around, like David Gasson and Cam Carter and those types of guys. But I think people have seen that it is a team that is learning and growing, but is getting better. I look at the field goal percentage the other night, and you're probably not going to make 14 threes every night, but those were good shots. In the game with USC, I think they got good shots early, and then they kind of just started forcing things up, and you can't do that really. So I think they are continuing to evolve and get better and define roles a little bit better. And it's going to be a team that is going to go through some change here. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with Naquan, but we know at some point they're going to get, Quez Glover back. Arthur Kaluma missed the game the other night. And to me, honestly, to play like that against a pretty quality South Dakota State team without Arthur and do that well, that was also encouraging. They've really needed to improve defensively. And I think that probably will be the thing that, is the hardest to get to where they need to be, especially with, I think Arthur will certainly play now. I think they held him out for precautionary reasons, and he needs to be better defensively. So does Tyler Perry, but so does everybody. They've got some work to do, but you said it perfectly. This is a game tonight where, at least for most people's minds, this is a very close kind of game. And these are, they won a couple of games like this in the Grand Caymans last year, and it kind of took them into that early part of January where they really got rolling. So it's big. This is a big weekend for them.
How impressed have you been, Wyatt, with how quickly Tyler Perry has acclimated himself to Wildcat basketball? I mean, I think everybody knew the talent level that he had, of course, watching him at North Texas, and, came in as a pretty acclaimed transfer to Jerome Tang's program. I thought that he was going to be good, but I certainly didn't expect to see him sort of take over as early as he has in this season for the Wildcats. How impressed have you been by him?
Well, let me just compliment you on that, because I think you're all over that one. He has fit in here in virtually every way. And he's so impressive with just the way he handles himself, the way he, his work ethic, skill set, wanting everybody around him to, do what they need to do. I mean, he's, excuse me, he's got some very quality leadership abilities, along with his talent. And he really, he really can shoot the ball. He didn't shoot the ball very well in the opener. Got off to a little bit of a rough start in the second game, but since then he's been really kicking it. And I think, we're at a different pace than he was playing at North Texas, and he's starting to settle in. I like everything about him. I think as he goes, K-State will go to a certain degree. He's that good.
Wyatt, this will be an interesting and busy day for you guys on the K-State Radio Network. So how is this going to work today? I know we have the game here on KFH for basketball today,
Yep.
And then of course we have football tomorrow. Who's on that call for the basketball?
Well, I've basically been saying in all of these types of interviews that Dan and I will miss the games in the Bahamas, which hurts because, hey, we don't like missing games. But just from the travel standpoint, it's pretty much impossible. So Brian Smoller, who works here and has been here a long time and does a really good job, will be the play-by-play guy for Friday and Sunday's games. And Ben Boyle, who does third-tier television and has been around here a long time, will be the color analyst. So they'll be on the air today at 4 o'clock, game just a little bit after 5, and then either 11 or 1:30 on Sunday. And in between, we've got the big football game over in Lawrence, and we'll be on the air there for 4 o'clock. So, yeah, I'm appreciative of those guys, being able to fill in for us, and I know they'll do great work. And I'll be honest, I hope they come back 2-0, and Coach Tang says something like, well, maybe we'll see if you really deserve to go on this next week.
That's right. Get a little good vibe or good luck in there. How about that? Superstitious. Is Coach Tang superstitious?
Do you think I should look at it like? Do you think I should look at this like Lawrence is the consolation prize, or not so much?
Well, it's the Bahamas. No, I think you're good. I think if anything else says, if nothing else says that KU is all the way back, it's that you're not regretting not being able to go to the Bahamas for a basketball game. How about that?
Yeah, well, let me just tell you, I do not want to miss that football game. Okay. I don't like missing basketball either, but this is such a big football game. I'm all in on it. I can't wait.
We are too. We'll hear Wyatt and the call for the football game. Again, he mentioned it. That pregame coverage begins at 4 for the 6 o'clock kick, and you can hear basketball, K-State Providence, tonight, 4 o'clock right here on KFHSL. Wyatt, good luck with the call tomorrow. Enjoy it, and we'll talk again next week.
Thanks a lot, partner. Appreciate it.
There goes Wyatt Thompson, voice of the Wildcats, with us here on Sports Daily. All right, let's get ready we'll talk about this Thursday night football situation. We'll begin to look ahead to the Chiefs. So there's a lot to get into today. So we'll just we'll bounce around a little bit, take your calls at 869-1240. Speaking of that IHOP hotline, you can call it in just a second. We'll get you some free HTO 2 Brewhouse offerings, which is the coffee drinks at HTO, available for you at Wichita East or Derby while you're in there, or at any HTO location, by the way. You can pre-order your Thanksgiving gallons. You got to do that before Sunday in order to get the special price, 4 for $19.99. You can pick those up then next week right before the holiday. So let's give away some free coffee, Jad. First caller to the IHOP hotline right now, 869-1240. Our HTO giveaway will come back. We'll talk a little Thursday night football next. right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily here on KFH. Tommy, did you know that Dolly Parton's rock album is dropping today?
That is news to me. I did not know that.
I didn't know it was dropping today. You knew she was making one, though, right?
Yeah. I didn't know that it
it's
was coming out today, though.
I saw Dolly on Twitter. Yeah, it's out. It's out. So are you a Dolly guy?
I don't mind Dolly. I think Dolly is fascinating. If you read like her history and how she got to where she is, I can't say I sit down and listen to a lot of Dolly from all the time, but yeah, sure. I mean, she's an icon.
She's an icon. She's the best. She's the best. And if you think anything otherwise, I don't even want to hear from you. 869-1240 is the number to call on that IHOP hotline. All right, let's take this piece by piece because there's a lot of little things we'll get to before we make picks, and we'll look at the sub-state playoffs tonight and high school football for a little bit. So Thursday night football was a letdown because Burrow was clearly hurt. The NFL's having a look into that today, and like, why didn't anybody know that it's his wrist, I guess, is really banged up. We saw, Mark Andrews go down early in the game. So we get really excited about this game, and then it's just like, oh, well, there go two of the best players in the game right out of there. So I don't even really good for Baltimore, but I mean, Cincinnati, is the outcome different if Burrow plays? I don't know, but I don't even know what to think about the game. Baltimore got it done when it needed to. Good for them. That's a big win for them. Cincinnati's in real big trouble here.
They are. I mean, them just losing Burrow like that, and who knows how long he's going to be out. There is a video of him on the sideline where if you can read lips, it looks like he says, "I felt a pop" on the sideline. And then you're watching him try to grip the football, couldn't do it. The thing that I want to focus in on with all of this, though, is why this season are we dealing with all of these situations where players were injured or sick or whatever, but the public didn't know about it. Like, it wasn't on an injury report. We had that with Bijan Robinson and Arthur Smith in Atlanta when apparently he was sick, but he was never on an injury report, and then he just didn't play. Now you're in a world with not only fantasy football, but sports wagering, where that sort of thing is really important, right? And, talking about the video of Burrow getting off the bus with the – I understand that, but he never showed up. Like, had he been questionable or even probable, with the wrist injury, he was. But if you add him is even a probable, then at least at that point, bettors, at that point, they have all the information, and then it's up to them to determine if they want to bet it or not. I mean, if you don't know anything, then you go with the information you have.
And I'm a very big supporter. I've made that clear even just this week with the Jason Beat. I want to know if guys are banged up, and I want to know but if you're practicing, and the thing is, he came in and completed 11 passes. So, it's a little different than the Bijan Robinson situation we saw, where all of a sudden he just doesn't play at all, right? Burrow clearly was trying to give it a go. I don't know if it was an aggravation. I don't know. I mean, if we didn't have the video, right, of him with the little wrist brace getting off the bus, we wouldn't have ever known that, we would have just thought he injured in the game. And so what's weird about it is he came in and played, and then so I don't know what's going to come. It's a really it's a pretty unique situation. Had he not played at all, that would be one thing. Or had it, looked like it was aggravating him from the first snap, that would be one thing. But it looks like whatever happened at some point did happen in the game, right? I don't know when you watch that video on the sideline, and it's easy to find on social media, that, I'm not real super confident that he's back quickly. He physically could not throw a ball. So it's okay, you don't just bounce back from that.
No.
And they're not going to be able to keep up. They're going to miss the playoffs.
I was a little bit concerned that they were going to miss the playoffs anyway, even with Joe Burrow. They haven't looked, they've been better. They've been 4-1 in their last 5 games, but they're just not, I don't feel like performing at a level where you can feel confident, even with Joe Burrow, that they can make a deep run this season. There were some other things going on there, but now that Burrow looks to potentially be out for at least a decent period of time, I mean, who knows? Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, it's not good for Cincinnati fans right now.
Let's go to the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Frank wants to weigh in. Frank, what's on your mind?
What's going on, guys? You kind of hit this on the head when you brought in the sports wagering aspect, because as someone like me that plays a lot of the same game parlays and stuff to get the bonus bets and stuff, I had Burrow over 1.5 touchdowns. I had Andrew as over 48.5 yards, and it automatically cancels out. You can't get the bet back. I mean, both of them were looking like they were easily on their way to happening, and then you end up. And I had everything else. I had Edwards. I had the Ravens. It's just one of those things where it's like, once I heard Andrews got hurt in the first quarter and wasn't coming back, I'm like, well,
yeah,
there went that bet. So
it's the worst thing about player props, Frank. I'm with you. I love betting player props, but it is the worst thing about it. Like, there's nothing that's going to happen that gives you no chance at, like, covering a number or getting over under. Like, there are things that happen that drastically affect it. But like when your player gets hurt, like, you have no chance, right? They're gone. They're done for the day. And so you have, like, you get all excited about your bets, and then they're done right out of the gate, and it kind of ruins your night. You're like, well, that's not fun.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, I'll give you my worst bad beat that ever happened was during baseball this year. I had a 10-leg parlay on the Braves Cubs game, and I had 9 of the 10 right. And of course, Dansby Swanson was a Braves shortstop. He's drafted by the Braves, and it got traded to the Cubs. And so they were playing at Atlanta, and I had 9 of the 10 right going into the 9th inning. And the Cubs pulled Dansby Swanson and brought in Morrell, so that Dansby Swanson could get his ovation from the Braves crowd. And Morrell ended up making, and I had him for getting a hit in the game. Well, I wasn't worried about it. Then they brought Morrell in, and he ended up striking out to make the last out of the game. And I lost my bet. So, yeah.
I had there was a bad beat last night. The Shockers gave us a bad beat last night. We had it.
Exactly.
They were on their way.
I rolled with you, and I took it too. And
were you watching? Did you watch it? Because it was
no,
excruciating. It was excruciating. They had it. And then it was like, okay, are they going to be able to get this with the foul situation? Everything's playing out perfectly. And then they foul the 3-point shooter instead of a 2. And they're like, oh, no, come on. And then, of course, they get 9 and not 9.5.
Then again, if we're betting Wichita State in a Christmas tournament, it kind of tells us who we are, I guess. So. I like betting the local teams. I always like betting the local teams. It makes, I know I'm going to be watching the game. I know I'm doing it again today. So what's that say? So have a great weekend.
I haven't looked
guys.
at the lines yet, but we will. Thanks, Frank.
Hey, I just want to say really quick before we go to break, the Joe Burrow situation, that's more than a bad beat. Like, that's just the fact that he was wearing a brace coming off the bus into the game and he wasn't on the injury report. That's not a bad. Mark Andrews is a bad beat, right? Like, that's an injury in the game. You've got him in a parlay, and then he gets hurt. I mean, that stinks. But the Joe Burrow thing, that's deeper than a bad beat, and that's something I'm glad the NFL is investigating it, because this sort of thing, I think, is happening far too often.
Well, yeah, you don't want that to happen, and I think probably we'll see what the investigate. I think probably they thought he would be fine and be able to play. By the way, K-State is a 1.5-point dog in their game. We're talking basketball here. I'm glad Frank reminded me. I haven't looked at the line. So 1.5-point dogs, K-State. Wichita State is a 3.5-point dog against Liberty. There you go. If you're interested in that today, we know you are. And if you're not, it's fun anyway, just to talk about it and get perspective. Speaking of lines, speaking of bets and picks, we'll do that next. Paul Savage joins us in studio, and we will take you through 10 games. We'll get you caught up on how things went last week, and we'll look ahead to a big football weekend next on Sports Daily.
Jacob Albracht, Tommy Castor. This is Sports Daily on Wichita's #1 sports radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, welcome in, everybody. It's hour number 2 here on Sports Daily. That IHOP hotline will open back up after we make some picks. IHOP, where through November 26th, kids eat free every day from 4 to 10 o'clock with the purchase of an adult entree. Glad to be here with you. Tommy wins the week again at 6-3 and 1.
Let's go.
Wow. I should also point out that Tommy is still in last place overall for the year.
Hey, I'm only 4 games behind both of you guys. I mean, I've made it into it's a race now. I'm not out of the question. I'm not out of the picture. I'm here. I'm ready to go. Let's rock and roll.
Flirting with 500. Paul and I are still making money for the year. We're each 5 games over 500.
Right.
Tommy's 3 games under 500. So that's, you'll have to beat us, Tommy, by 4 games directly. So it's not, it's not like you get 4 right. Like you get that's still, it's still got a little work to do, but you're on a heater.
I've made up like 18 games in the last 2 weeks. So, I mean, it can be done, and I'm going to prove that it can happen.
Well, just an observation from past years. It's obvious we've had a lot of, this is our 3rd change in leadership at the top of the board on this Picking Fridays since we started. That hardly ever happens, Jacob. Usually one guy comes on, he takes a lead, he builds on it, and then if he loses a little bit,
stop talking about me, Paul. I'm sitting right here.
Oh, well, I wasn't really referring to you per se, as we would say, but the point is, it's hard to gain the advantage and then to keep it. I mean, this is crazy. And Tommy, come on, you're doing great. Come on,
thank you.
You keep it up. Keep it up. That's what I like to see. I like to coach my kids, make them better. You can do this. See what I'm doing, Jacob? I'm coaching him. I'm coaching him up a little.
Well, way to go, Coach. I'm going to tell you, Tommy, that I hope you fail miserably today.
Oh, God.
Let's get right into it, Jad, with the music. Utah, Arizona. There's some ranked games today. We're going to get to all of them, I believe, and then one that's not both ranked, but one that certainly we have our eye on. So Utah, Arizona is a pick 'em, fellas. It's just a straight pick 'em in Arizona. Tommy, let's start with the the Pac-12 as it stands. They've got probably the best top to bottom league in football this year. Maybe they're in the mix. Certainly, this is a good one. Utah, Arizona. What do you think?
I actually think this one might be the easiest game to pick of the entire weekend slate. I honestly do, considering it's a pick 'em. I think Utah's better than Arizona is. I think Kyle Whittingham is a great coach. They battled against Washington a week ago. I don't think it's even going to be particularly close. I know it's in Arizona, but give me Utah on the money line. I think that they win.
Paul, where are you at with this one? This line has actually moved, but when I wrote the picks down, it's moved seriously since we started doing this. It's actually moved to Arizona -1, but we're taking it as a pick 'em. Paul, what do you think on this one?
Early on in this year, just like Missouri, I thought Arizona was not going to be that good. I thought they were overrated earlier in the year. Arizona is better than I thought they would be, but Tommy's right. I've been on the bandwagon to a certain extent on Utah. I mean, not fully on the bandwagon, but I've been on their bandwagon. I'm going to take Utah as well. If this is a pick 'em, if Arizona had points, I'd probably take Arizona. But a pick 'em, I'm going with Utah.
They each lost to Washington by a touchdown. It's hard. It's hard because Utah's losses, right? Their losses have all come to ranked teams: Oregon State, Oregon, and Washington. Guys, Arizona's beaten Washington State, Oregon State, and UCLA 3 out of the last 4 weeks. They're at home. I think I'm just going to take the home team here. I don't know. I think this is going to be great. I do think we're underrating Arizona for sure. I don't think Arizona is getting enough credit for the wins that they've had in the last month or so. So I'll take Arizona at home. I'm happy to take that island. Georgia and Tennessee. Paul, you're up first on this one. Tennessee getting 10 points at home. You comfortable with that?
Easiest
with an SEC game?
Easiest pick on the college side. Georgia is a good football team. Listen, Tennessee laid an egg. They hurt me last week. I was disappointed in them. I had given them more credit. I thought they were better than they are. Tennessee stinks. Georgia is great. The 10 points, that'll be covered by halftime. I'm taking Georgia.
Yeah, I think Georgia is going to, be where we thought they were. I'm going to take Georgia as well. I just think over time they'll become more like the Georgia we've known. I'll take the Bulldogs and lay the 10-2. Tommy, you got an island opportunity here.
Look, if this was the game immediately following the Georgia-Missouri game when the Bulldogs won by 9 against the Tigers, I might have taken Tennessee on an island to cover. But this comes after the Bulldogs absolutely destroyed Ole Miss a week ago. And Ole Miss is a really solid football team coached by Lane Kiffin. So knowing that, I think the Bulldogs are rounding into form for the CFP. They flexed a little bit a week ago. I'm going to have to make it a clean sweep. Give me Georgia -10.
All right, I'll go first on this next one. I put this in because it obviously has implications for K-State and KU. Oklahoma State is going to Houston. They're laying 6.5 after that just massively disappointing game a week ago. Guys, this is hard. We would have laughed at this line before last week. We'd have laughed at it. But now Oklahoma State, all of a sudden, you only give up a touchdown going to Houston. I'll take the Cowboys to bounce back. Boy, I don't want to. I'm going to take the Cowboys to bounce back. They really let me down last week, but we'll see what kind of team this is based on this performance. I think I'll take Oklahoma State and I'll lay the 6.5. Paul?
Well, you make a great case, and I think Tommy's going to take Oklahoma State. I think I'm willing to roll the dice. I'll tell you what, I've not been happy with Houston. I thought they were going to be a better football team, particularly this year, going into the Big 12. Golly, do I do this? Do I take an island? Because I think it's going to be an island. Do I take the island? What the heck? Why not? I'm taking Houston. I'm going on the island.
I almost did. Tommy, which way you going on this?
Well, I think we're going to find out by the end of this game if Oklahoma State is truly worthy of playing in a Big 12 championship game or if the streak that they had earlier this season was just fool's gold. That game against UCF was shocking. Not just the fact that the Cowboys lost, but the fact that they got ran out of town. I certainly didn't see that coming.
Yes.
I'm going to lean with Jacob. I think that Mike Gundy has them bounce back. I think the Cowboys can win by more than a touchdown. I think that's going to solidify their path to a Big 12 title game in Arlington. I'll take Oklahoma State. I'll lay the 6.5.
All right, Washington, Oregon State, Paul, another great one in the Pac-12. Here's Oregon State. Look, Oregon State, if we were in the 12-team playoff under the new way teams get in, it'd be Oregon State that gets in. I think they would be one of the teams. So, it's an interesting Beavers team. They're at home. They're laying a point to Washington. So Vegas clearly respects Oregon State. How do you feel about it?
You got me first, right?
Yep.
Okay. I like Oregon State. I like Oregon State to come into the Big 12. I think Washington State and Oregon State, I could see them as potential Big 12 members right now. And they play good football. They always have played good football. But Washington's got a Heisman contender. Washington has a better defense. The points aren't enough to dissuade me from taking Washington. 1 point, this is for all practical purposes. Now watch them, 1 point difference. But for all practical purposes, this is a pick 'em. And in this pick 'em, I'm taking Washington.
Tommy, are you in on Washington or are you in on Oregon State?
Here we go again.
Yeah, I'm not in on Washington, but I might be in on Washington.
Hurdle used to do that to me, by the way. Bruce Hurdle started this, and I don't appreciate it, Hurdle, if you're listening.
Look,
Spoken like a true Texan. You spent too much time at Baylor.
Yeah, I know I did.
Anyway.
Way too much.
Here's the thing about this game. So Washington, they've played 3 ranked opponents this season, and they're 3-0 against ranked opponents. They've won all 3 of those games. Can they make it 4-0? I think they can. They've beat Utah. They've beat Arizona. They beat USC. And they beat, there was another one in there too. In Oregon. Did I say Oregon? Doesn't matter. I think they'll make it 4-0 against ranked opponents. I'll take Washington, and I'll take that. I'll take the point. I'll take the +1.
Oh, man. It's Oregon State's not all that different than what you just said. Their loss came at Arizona, and then they've beaten all the other ranked teams they've played. No, they lost to Washington State. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So
Yep.
maybe but that was on the road too. So they lost 2 roadies.
And by the way,
history tells us how good they are at home. I mean, it's always been that
right.
way.
And not to try to persuade you one way or another, but keep in mind, I mean, Michael Penix Jr. is a likely Heisman guy, right? And he's starting for the Huskies. So that's another reason why I'm going to take Washington, but it's not my pick. It's yours. Go ahead and do what you want to do.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't known where I'm going with this one. It's not one I'm going to bet because I really don't know. But Oregon State's at home. I'm going to take Washington too. I've been with Washington most of the way here. I'll go ahead and take the Huskies. We're not going to make up any ground on this, but we got to win the games too. So I'm going to take the Huskies. Gosh dang, Oregon State's so good, and that's such a hard place to play. This will be a big spot for Penix. Look, if he blows them out here or something like that, that may be enough to get him that Heisman. We'll see. And then the big one, fellas, K-State, KU. That line is now at 9.5 points. KU is a 9.5 point home underdog. Almost certainly Jason Bean is playing in this game. I believe, Tommy, you're up first on this one. That's a big number.
It moved from 8 to 9.5 yesterday, and it was kind of strange because nothing happened that I could tell. I texted you. I said, "Hey, the line's at 9.5. Did something happened?" We're like, "No, I don't know." There hasn't been any definitive statement about the quarterback situation with Kansas, but it does sound like Jason Bean got a good amount of reps this week in practice. Honestly, I didn't understand the line at 8. I said that yesterday. I certainly don't understand the line at 9.5. All the different things, the Sunflower Showdown, the streak that Kansas State has 14 years in a row winning the Sunflower Showdown. You've got 2 high-quality coaches for both programs. By the way, it's the final game in David Booth, Kansas Memorial Stadium in the way that we know it before the renovations begin next year. I don't know if Kansas is going to win the game, but at risk of sounding like a homer, I certainly think they can cover 9.5. I'll take the Jayhawks plus 9.5 tomorrow.
Well, there's no homer here. It's just kind of like, how do you see the game? You've seen this as a decent matchup for KU from the beginning. Yeah. I've seen it from the beginning as a good matchup for K-State. The only thing, I don't know if Vegas had any expectation that maybe Jalen Daniels was playing, and so when he announced that he was basically done for the year, maybe that moved it. I can't figure out why it moved either. I certainly liked it more where it opened at 7.5. But I have to stick with the fact that when I've thought about this game, I do think that, the strengths and weaknesses of both teams do favor K-State. I think K-State wants to score. I think they want to make KU try to score with Jason Bean or whoever the quarterback is. I think this is a good game. I think it's competitive, but I can't not take K-State when I've thought all along for about a month now that this is a matchup that favors the Cats just stylistically. I got to reluctantly take K-State because I hate 9.5 points, but I think it's a matchup that favors the Cats. So I'm going to take K-State. Paul?
I think that's a good pick, but I see Tommy's point. 9.5 points does give you pause to, make that selection. But here's what it does here's what really gets to me with regards to this pick, and that is the quarterback situation at KU. I mean, sure, Jason Bean's getting some reps. He's getting some time on the field. It's all controlled. I mean, nobody's touching him. And my question to myself, I ask is, can he last the ins and outs, the hits and the movement and all the things, the going to the ground, all those things in a game situation? And I don't know. And I don't think any of us know exactly how durable he is once he starts taking some pops here and there. With that being said, Kansas State is a physical football team. They're going to pressure Jason Bean. He is going to take some hits in the pocket. He's going to have to get out and move with the ball, probably take some hits. I don't know, but that's the question I ask myself. And because I think that once Jason Bean, if he's forced to come off the field, then Kansas has another whole set of problems. Tommy, I know you would agree with that. And so for that reason, I'm taking K-State. I'm not crazy about the 9.5 guys. I'm not crazy about nobody is. But nobody is. That's right. But I'm going to go ahead and take K-State. I think they cover it. I don't know that they cover it by a lot, but they win this game, and they probably cover it by 10 or more. I'm taking KSU.
Well, think about this. The Jayhawks just about covered the number a week ago against Texas Tech with Cole Ballard at quarterback.
I know.
Right? So I think that tells you something also.
So I've had K-State as about a 10-point winner. That's probably where Tommy and I have been talking about this game off the air for a long time. And I said, I think K-State's better. And it's been about 10 points that I've thought. So it's in there. But, the thing, and Paul, you bring up a good point, and this goes back to the injury designation stuff. The problem with the quarterback situation is we don't know if is it the head injury or the leg injury that's lingering or not lingering for Jason Bean, right?
I don't know.
If you told me his leg was fine, and it's just like a concussion protocol thing, I'd feel pretty good about Jason Bean's chances. But we don't know if it's his leg potentially that could linger here. So that makes it really difficult. It's one where we got to pick a side here. But obviously, I don't feel good about that side. And, if I had to bet this game, I would probably bet the over. But we'll see. That's not what we're doing here. So there's our picks. All right, on to the NFL. Steelers and Browns. I'm up first here. Kenny Pickett against that Browns defense, Cleveland without Deshaun Watson. I feel like this is going to be just an ugly, ugly game. I'll take. Man, I'm going to take Pittsburgh. They're starting to run the ball a little bit. They've got the better weapons. Cleveland's defense is there, but Pittsburgh's defense is pretty good. I'm going to take the Steelers. I don't feel good about this at all, Tommy.
Pittsburgh is maybe the weirdest team in football.
Yeah,
they get outgained every week, it seems like, and yet they find ways to win. They're 6-3. They're going to be taking on a Deshaun Watson-less Browns team this week and potentially a Joe Burrow-less Cincinnati Bengals in a couple of weeks. I mean, the right place at the right time, right? I mean, for this team, it's crazy. I'm going to take the Steelers +1. I don't have a ton of faith in Kenny Pickett. I do have more faith in their defense. Now, Cleveland's defense is pretty solid, and that's probably going to keep the Browns in the game. But I just don't think Cleveland has the firepower to be able to score enough to win. I'll take Pittsburgh, and I'll take the 1 point.
Paul, chance for an island with the home team.
It is a chance, but, with the shakeup at quarterback, the injury to Deshaun Watson, it gives me pause. But here's the thing, guys. Here's what tears me up is if you guys remember, I thought Pittsburgh was going to be a contender earlier in the year. And boy, did they fall flat on, in the first 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season. They weren't very good, fellas. They didn't win many football games. And I lost a bunch of games with Pittsburgh in our Friday picks. So I'm a little torn. But boy, oh boy, when you lose your quarterback in the fashion that this has happened and you have a week to get over it, sure, you got a backup, he gets reps. It really gives me pause. But on the other hand, Browns got a pretty good defense, don't they, fellows? Not bad. Not bad. You know something? Here's an island. It's only 1 point. But you know something? I'm going to go ahead and take the Browns because I kind of feel good about it, but I have hesitation because of the quarterback situation. I'll take the Browns anyway. I'm taking the Browns.
Well, yeah. I mean, do it. You get out there on that island. We'll see what happens. All right, let's go on to the next one. 49ers bounced back in a big way last week. Now they're 11.5-point home favorites. Paul, you're up first on this one. Niners, Bucks. That number too big for you? Or are you good with it?
Well, I kind of like that number. I think that's probably about right. I think 49ers. However, guys, I'm going to make a statement right now. You guys can agree or disagree. I want to know, do you agree or disagree? 49ers will be in the Super Bowl. What do you think?
Boy, I really want to see Monday Night Football before I make that proclamation.
All right.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Who are you taking in this game? You giving the 11.5?
I think I'm going to do it. I mean, they worked for me last year. What was the number last week? What was the number last? It was
3
a big
points.
number, whatever
3
it was.
Points. Yeah. It was 3. It was 3 against the Jags.
Oh, okay, it was. But the amount of difference in the victory was significant. I think I'm going to go ahead and take the 40. I'm going to take the 49ers. That's crazy. But I took 17 with the Cowboys last week, and it worked out fine. I'm taking the 49ers and giving 11.5. I can't believe it. I'll bet this is an island for me.
It got on the wrong side of 10, Tommy. You still good with 11.5?
So they crushed Jacksonville by 4 touchdowns a week ago. Jacksonville is a better team than Tampa Bay is, I think. And the fact that the Niners crushed Jacksonville by that amount, it makes me think it's going to be
on the road
rough
too
for the Buccaneers this weekend. Here's the thing, there's always that come back down to earth thought that, okay, they had a huge win and deflating and all of that. I just don't see that happening. I think the Niners found what they needed to find after that 3-game losing skid. They've got Deebo Samuel back. Trent Williams is dominant on the line. He's back and healthy. Of course, how they utilize Brandon Ayuk and Christian McCaffrey and all of that. I'm kind of with Paul. I think I'm going to take the Niners. I'll lay the 11.5.
Yeah, I like this one too. So they're clearly different on offense with Debo there. There's no doubt about it. 11.5 in the NFL has backdoor cover written all over it. But the Niners can run the ball effectively, as good as any team in football. Maybe that lessens the chance of a backdoor cover because they can get the clock run out properly. And Tampa, when they're going through Rashad White. I don't know that he's going to be able to get much going in a game where San Francisco should be able to score at a pretty good clip. So I'll take the Niners too and lay the 11.5. I'm surprised that went that way. Jets Bills. This is just sort of a confusing game moment here. These two very confusing teams.
Yes.
I think I'm first here. The Bills have got to get it right. I think this is a chance for them to get it right. I think that it's just sort of a bet on Josh Allen as a gamer. I'm going to take the Bills here and lay the 7. And for no other reason than it just feels like finally they're going to have their chance to at least get sort of back on the right track. If they don't win this game, it's over for Sean McDermott. I think the Bills will win this by a touchdown. Paul?
Well, I'll tell you what, both these teams have had their moments where they have stunk bad. And I'm really torn because I like the Jets because of my experience with Hard Knocks. I'm a fan of the Jets. And so I'm tempted to take the Jets because I think Tommy's going to take the Bills and give me 7. So I'm going to take the Jets because Tommy takes the Bills.
Can start a counter on the show every time Paul mentions Hard Knocks. Like, let's just find just a little ding, just a little ding. Whenever he says Hard Knocks, we'll just hit a.
I like the show, or you kind of liked it. Come on,
Jad. There it is. Jad will get on that every time he says Hard Knocks.
What is wrong with you?
I love that.
Good Lord.
It's kind of like take a drink anytime somebody says something. That's kind of what it is. Okay, so here's my thought with this matchup. I think the Bills, from a talent perspective, are about 2 touchdowns better than the Jets. But we know the mistakes that Josh Allen has made.
Yes.
And the fact that, he's going to throw probably a bad pick. It usually happens in basically every single game. But I don't think it's going to be enough for the Jets to win or even cover. It's pretty desperate times in Buffalo. I agree. If they lose this game, they're not making the playoffs. And Sean McDermott is probably out of a job in short order. I'll take Buffalo. I'll lay the 7 points because I think they'll bounce back. I think there'll be an ugly pick from Josh Allen to make it a little bit closer, but I do think Buffalo covers.
Okay, there it is. Where Paul gets a Jets Island. Not a bad place to be. Vikings, Broncos. This is one of my favorite to pick because you've got these 2 upstart teams, right? You've got the Broncos who have come all the way back. Guys, the Broncos are not a bad team. In fact, they may be an above average team and a playoff contender. And then the Vikings and this Josh Dobbs story has just been incredible. Paul, you're up first here. Broncos are 2.5-point favorites. Where are you going?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is a made-for-TV movie, I think, somewhere along the way with the way the Broncos have bounced back. Fellas, all 3 of us at one point in this season, 3, 4, 5, 6 games into this season, had written off the Broncos like they may never win another game in the history of their franchise. But, man, this is a team that bounced back. It just goes to show you coaching means a lot. Coaching means a lot, whether it's in high school or whether it's in the NFL. Coaching is a lot. I'm going to take the Broncos, man. I think I'm on board. I think I'm believing. I'm thinking this is for real. I'm taking the Broncos.
Tommy?
No, I don't believe in the Broncos. I think that they've had a nice stretch. Here's the thing about Minnesota. Josh Dobbs comes in to the Vikings, and without even knowing his teammates, or barely knowing the playbook, he leads them to a victory. And now he's had a couple of more weeks to get acclimated and accustomed to the Vikings and the way that they do things and the organization and all of that. And by the way, there's a chance that Justin Jefferson plays this weekend. I don't know if he will. I don't even really know if it's necessarily going to matter as far as the spread is concerned, because I still think they've got quite a few talented guys like Jordan Addison and KJ Osborne should be back. I'm going to take the Vikings to cover 2.5. I think that they do that on the road. In fact, I kind of like the Vikings on the money line.
By the way, it was an interesting story about how the new quarterback comes in, goes out onto the field, plays his first game. He doesn't even know people's names. I mean, that's something. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, this is a hard one. I've gone back and forth, honestly, a bunch of times on this. I think that, what gets interesting is, can Minnesota run the ball? Because I think they're going to need to run the ball. Denver's got a really good pass defense, as we saw against Buffalo, and they allow the run, as we saw James Cook have a great game and Buffalo abandon it for some reason. I just think it's a bad matchup for the Vikings. What makes it hard to pick this now is we don't know what's going to happen with Justin Jefferson. If Justin Jefferson plays, I think you like this a little bit better, because Surtain can only cover one guy, right? I'm going to reluctantly here take the Broncos without knowing Justin Jefferson, because I think the way to beat Denver is to run the ball, and Minnesota just has not been able to do that at all. Watch out for Ty Chandler. This may be the week Minnesota tries to use him more, and that could change this. I'll reluctantly take Denver just based on matchup. Eagles-Chiefs, fellas. Chiefs -2.5 at home at Arrowhead. The Super Bowl rematch, the one we've all been waiting for. Paul, I believe you're up first. Which way you going in this massive, massive game? Maybe the game of the year.
Well, we could throw out all kinds of stats and talk about, the matchup and all those kind of things. And yet, emotionally speaking, Kansas City's my team, followed by the Broncos and the Cowboys. Those are my three teams in the NFL. But emotionally speaking, there's just no way I can go against the Chiefs. Guys, this is a pick with my heart, because, 2.5 points, I think, this game could easily be within that. But this is going to be my one pick of the week that I pick with my heart. I could go with the Eagles, but I'm not. I'm going to go with the Chiefs, because for me, it's the right thing to do.
Chiefs, Tommy, where are you going on this one?
I'm done hoping and crossing my fingers and expecting that the Chiefs offense will just kick it into gear with their wide receivers. I think they are who we thought they were, and I think they're going to continue in that way. So I'm making this pick solely based on how I feel about the Kansas City defense, and more specifically, how I feel about Trent McDuffie, who is blossoming into a superstar. They're going to need him to play a great game to try to limit A.J. Brown, maybe Devontae Smith, and the weapons that the Eagles have. So for that reason, I feel confident in Kansas City's defense. Because of that, and only because of that, I'm going to take the Chiefs and only the 2.5.
I thought that didn't sound like that was going to be that way, but I'll tell you, I got you.
I'll take the island here. Again, I'm not picking in the playoffs any team with the defense that the Chiefs have and Mahomes and Kelsey. I won't pick any team against them. We're not in the playoffs. Philadelphia is better right now. Kansas City's offense has been definitively bad lately. And so, yes, it's coming out of the bye week. I get all that. But Philadelphia is just, they're going to be very wired for this one. Again, like, you can pass on them. That's the way to beat them. And the Chiefs just aren't doing that well right now. So it's a matchup thing. I think right now on November 17th is kind of a bad matchup for the Chiefs. And I'm going to take Philadelphia. And I mean, maybe the Chiefs will show us something. Maybe this is the week, but until they do, I don't know how you lean into that. I'll take Philadelphia on that island, and I'll take the 2.5 points for sure. All right, that's a lot of picks. We're a little over schedule. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back. We can talk more about that Chiefs-Eagles game. We'll have a lot of opportunities, though. Don't worry, to do that on Monday. We'll certainly talk about some of the high school football matchups that are coming up tonight as we roll forward here on Sports Daily. Primetime NFL games from Westwood One, available live for free right here on KFH and on the Odyssey app. Tune in to KFH Sunday night for NFL action. The NFL's two longest win streaks on the line. Vikings travel to Denver. You can listen to it here on KFH or simply download the Odyssey app and search for KFH at kickoff. All right, guys, high school football playoffs. Paul, the Blue Aces, little injury issue last week, couldn't get through.
Yep.
Great season, though. Yep. Congratulations on that season.
Well, thank you.
For sure. Eisenhower, Capen. You've seen Capen, obviously, Paul. What do you think about this 5A game? We'll start there. As our West Side matchup is Eisenhower and Capen.
You know, in a world that we live in, the world of football, so many teams run spread. A lot of zone stuff. It's just a different game. Capen is still that throwback. Weston Sharts, bless his heart. I mean, he understands power football. He'll line up in power formations, still runs power off tackle, still runs ISO, still runs trap. I mean, he'll sit there and trap your 3-tech all day long until you figure it out. And that's the beautiful thing. It's hard to prepare to play Capen. And because of that, I like the edge to Capon. And having played Capon, I can tell you they're a physical football team. And you guys know what I think of physical football teams. They've got advantages over teams that aren't. And although I don't know just how physical the other team is, I do know that Capon is physical. And I like the Crusaders in this game. I really do. I think they'll have a shot at winning the whole thing, if you want my opinion.
Paul, let me ask you this, because
Sure.
I know that you're closer in the high school city league football world than I am. How impressive has that turnaround at Capon been under Weston Sharts and the job that he's done there? I mean, it wasn't that long ago that Capon was getting blown out every single year when they played Carroll. I mean,
Yeah.
it was not even a competition. And what Sharts has done turning that program around, I think it's pretty incredible. I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, it is pretty incredible, but I don't know why you would be surprised. He went to West, turned it around. He went to Northwest, turned it around to a certain extent. I mean, they were still pretty good, but you got to give him a lot of credit. I'm just telling you, the guy wins wherever he goes. I mean, he's in the Wichita. Remember last year we put him into the, or was it 2 years ago, Jacob? We put him into the Wichita Sports Hall of Fame, and 2 years ago, well deserving. I mean, there's a reason he's in the Hall of Fame, and that's because he's a winner, and he's a winner wherever he goes. But he has a basis of which he's believed over a long period of time. His belief system is that you do the basics, you learn how to block, you learn how to tackle, you learn how to come off the ball if you're an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, you learn how to be physical. He teaches those things. It's still a day where, zone stretch is what you do, and it's more of a finesse. It's not coming off the ball and, making contact and driving people. It's more, of reaching people and getting around them and that kind of thing. So he's a throwback, fellas. He's a throwback. And it's hard to prepare for people and offenses that you don't see that much. And therein lies part of his success. But he's always believed in what he's coaching. And it's hard not to say, gosh, the guy's been pretty good at what he teaches. But, be ready to stop the trap, because here it comes. And if you're going to play, if Capon makes it into the state championship game, Capon's going to run trap, power off tackle, and ISO. There you go. Stop those three, and you have a chance at beating Capon.
It helps to have Omari Elias there, who's capable of carrying the ball 50
that
times in a
helps.
game.
Yeah,
that helps. Yes.
It's so as we look around, Derby finally got its revenge against Manhattan last week. The Panthers are back in a state title game, probably the most unlikely form we've seen in recent years, but they're there. They'll take on Washburn Rural, a beatable team, certainly. We'll have Brandon Zenner up there to cover that game for us tonight on Catch It Kansas. The other big one that let me give you the rundown of the games, and then we'll talk about one of these because it's sort of a headline game. Andover Central is going to face a tall test in 4A against Wamego. In 2A, Hoisington and Norton County will play. 1A, Medicine Lodge, Conway Springs, and then down to the smaller schools, your 8-man games are El Saline, Wichita County, South Central Victoria, and in 6-man, Tescott, Cunningham, and Ashland in Shaylin, Bird City. But the 3A game is the other one that we'll spend some time here with, because you get a rematch. Andale, Cheney, game of the century, basically, the first time around. Overtime, Cheney got it done. They broke the streak. It's interesting because in the postseason, it's been, Cheney, they started a little bit slow against Holcomb, and then it was a win last week against Clay Center, but 23-21, whereas we've seen Andale in the postseason so far really flex it out like normal, 44-8 over Scott City a couple of weeks ago, and then Collegiate again, 25-point winners. So Andale probably has a little more momentum here, but they got to come into Cheney and face the team that gave them the loss, that busted the streak and everything, Tommy. And it's funny, a 3A game, we've been kicking around the office. I'm like, guys, I'm just going to tell you, as we're looking at trying to figure out where to send people, I'm like, I've had more questions about 3A with Andale and Cheney this year, just from guys on the street, than I have any other football all year long.
Yeah.
But look, I mean, if you think it's difficult to beat Andale once, try to beat him twice, right? Like that, it's going to be just a supreme challenge for Cheney. And I don't want to take anything away from the Cardinals at all. What they did earlier this season, incredible. And they are just a phenomenal football program. But I think it's kind of like catching lightning in a bottle to beat Andale once and then to try to do it again, that's going to be really difficult, because one thing I know about the Andale program and the way that they operate is that once that loss happened, you better believe that they started planning for the next time those two teams are going to meet up, potentially in the playoffs. And that's what's happened. So I can imagine that Andale is going to be primed and ready going into Cheney to try to do everything that they can to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Paul, it's what it's all about. This kind of matchup is what it's all about. This makes it fun for everybody when you've got, the kind of headlines Andale's garnered over the year. You can catch all the games on Catch It Kansas tonight with us. You can follow along on the Catch It Kansas app. And, of course, we'll have the Catch It Kansas show. We've got reporters out on scene all over the place. TJ Cleveland will be at one of those games, and Brandon Zenner and a few of our other staff members who don't always jump on camera to cover. We're putting them on camera, baby. Let's go. We're all in here for the Substate at catchkansas.com. Check it out on 12 News as well. All right, when we come back, let's get into that Jalen Daniels story from yesterday a little bit. He's coming back. He let everybody know about it. What do we think? We'll hit it next on Sports Daily. All right, welcome back, fellas. Sports Daily. Jalen Daniels announces he'll be back with some flair. Just sort of, I think, taking a shot almost, Tommy, at, all the doubters and dissenters who have been – we've never really bought into those theories, by the way, because we've never heard anything or seen anything that would make us think that there's any sort of, animosity based on anything Lance Leipold said, based on anything historically. Shri Aslata, our KU insider, has backed that up a little bit, that he's never heard any of this. And Jalen Daniels putting all the doubts to bed that he'll be back in Lawrence next year.
Yeah, a lot of rumors and speculation and people talking and hearsay and all of that. There was never anything concrete other than just he was dealing with an injury and it hasn't gotten better to the point to where he feels like he can go out there and compete. And so I think that video, obviously puts a lot of that speculation to bed. But the one thing that I think is kind of getting lost in the attention that the video from Jalen Daniels that he put out mentioned was it wasn't just a video. There was also a statement that came from the Kansas football social media platforms from Jalen Daniels talking about how he was going to be returning to the team next year and all of that. But he also put in there, I'm looking forward to being back under Coach Leipold. And I think that was very intentional and very important. And I sent that to you because I think it shows, it kind of reaffirms not only Jalen Daniels' commitment next season to the Jayhawks, but also Lance Leipold's as well. And the fact that it's coming from the official, Kansas football social media, that's not an accident. And if there was any kind of question about whether or not Lance Leipold wasn't coming back, they wouldn't have included that part of it in the statement.
I made a joke to Tommy Paul when he sent me that. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. I said, well, that's unless Leipold goes to A&M and Jalen Daniels goes with him, right?
Yeah,
it was
not happening. Not happening.
A joke, everybody.
Okay.
It was a joke.
I got it.
I can hear Fitz rolling over and steaming at the thought of it. It was good to see, though, because it does.
Right.
It's like a two-pronged attack. It reaffirms Lance Leipold's, future and sort of solidifies that for him staying in Lawrence and that it'll be with Jalen Daniels next year. And I got to say, if and likely that Jalen Daniels and Leipold are back in Lawrence next year with the way they've been recruiting and all the things that have been done, if Jalen Daniels is healthy, at that point, if we have to get a clean bill of health somehow,
maybe
they're probably going to be the favorites in the Big 12.
Well, they might be, but this is the least surprising announcement I've ever heard. You know why?
Right.
A little thing called NIL. This is change.
Sure.
Just changes all this stuff. Yeah. He's coming back. Not only does he want to play,
he's got his own logo branded, sweatshirt on in the video.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm telling you right now, we're seeing more and more of this stuff, guys coming back for this particular period of time, because it was pointed out, and I didn't realize this, the possibilities of making more money with NIL is possible for one more year than, being a 6th or 7th round draft pick and signing with an NFL team. There are going to be those individuals that make more money with NIL sticking in college. This is not surprising, because I'm sure Jalen Daniels is going to do very, very well with regards to NIL. So I mean, I'm not surprised. But the reasons that he stated, my dreams haven't changed. My goals are still there. The vision for my future is clear. So I mean, we get that those words. They're lofty words. It all has to do with packaging, but I don't blame him. But it's unsurprising. I am not surprised at all that he's coming back to the University of Kansas. By the way, even if he went to A&M, he's not going to get the money because nobody's going to know who he is. He's not going
to A&M.
Let's not open that can. Let's not open that can of worms.
That's not happening. Here's the thing. It's not just Jalen Daniels and Lance Leipold. They return a lot next year.
I know. That's why I say they're going to be the favorite.
65% of their offense, I think, is coming back, or something more than that. They've got a lot of returners. I agree with you. I think that knowing that both of those guys are back, that's going to bode well next season for the way that they're ranked and all of that.
If Daniels is fully healthy, never forget, early in the season, Leipold said that this had been an injury that was lingering even last year. It's his back. So we do have to get a clean bill of health. It's been strange. It's just really nice and reassuring and comforting, I think, for KU fans to just get that out of here. We're done with all that. Okay. It's good. It's Jason Bean now. Maybe we'll see this weekend. The rest of the way, And then next year, you're going to be a favorite in a new Big 12. Saying that out loud is crazy. Okay, we'll come back. We'll tell you what's on tap this weekend next.
This is 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
Wichita's most listened to sports radio. 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, Jim Rome, 11-2 today. Bob and Jeff, 2-4. Then we get K-State basketball right here on KFH at 4 o'clock. The Shocker men at 7 o'clock pregame coverage against Liberty over on KEYN. Tomorrow, K-State, KU, the Sunflower Showdown pregame begins at 4. And then on Sunday, you've got K-State hoops at 12:30 here on KFH. You've got Shockers going at 3:30, likely, game time pending, against KEYN. Then you get Sunday Night Football at 6:30. Tommy will be out next week. We'll be on Monday through Wednesday. Paul will be in with me. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the Sunflower Showdown. We'll see you next week.
Sports, later news, and